Welcome to Asian American Parenting, a podcast from Rooted Ministry and the Solid Network, where the gospel meets Asian American faith, culture, and parenting. Each episode, we explore how to raise the next generation with a strong gospel foundation in Christ while navigating the unique challenges of our cultural identity. Thanks for joining us. Let's dive in. Welcome to Asian American Parenting, a podcast of the Solid Network and Rooted Ministry. I'm one of your co-hosts, Danny Kwan, and this is my other co-host, Monica Kim.
Hi everyone, good to be here.
Monica is a psychologist and biblical counselor, and I'm Rooted's Senior Director of Youth Ministry Content, as well as I was a youth pastor for 29 years. And today we're going to be talking about this very interesting topic of teenage friendships, drama, and how as Asian American parents we parent through this aspect of parenting. And we're considering this question today because probably for our parents, they really minimized this idea of friendships and drama. Maybe it wasn't a cultural part of our cultural heritage, and our parents didn't really think about our friendships and what it meant to us. But these days, God has blessed us with relationships. He's called us to communities, and teenagers are in development and in a season of identity formation, and that Jesus even modeled deep friendship. And so teenagers really crave deep friendship. And in my remembrance of youth ministry at a church for 29 years, I remember these stories of like girls posting up.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
and boys too.
Yeah, I was going to talk about
Yeah.
like girls posting a picture on Instagram of 4 of them in a picture and 2 of them missing in that picture, and it would cause a lot of drama between them. Or some boys talking about, they were once friends, but they were bullying each other, and it caused a negative relationship in that. And they wanted to really express it because you and I know, Monica, that, now teens, they value justice and authenticity and empathy and compassion for others. And they want to be included, and they want to be loved and have special relationship. So again, different from our own parents, Asian parents, it is important to recognize teenage drama and friendships and parenting. Any thoughts from your end, Monica?
Yeah. I was thinking back to some of those teenage dramas and in the youth group that had happened. One actually involved our son in it. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And we really had to guide him through it in the midst of this dynamic that felt really difficult for him, and how to really stay with him in the midst of that continued work with his friends, all the things that were going on with his friends. That definitely, when you were talking about what happened in youth group, that certainly brought to mind those incidences, not just for myself as a walking alongside you in youth ministry, but also as a mom, tending to my son in the midst of some drama. I also liked that while we're talking about this real difficult topic about teenagers and friendship and some of the dramas that may happen, and how we ought to parent them in the midst of it, I think our parents, while they may not have disagreed with the idea of friendships being important.
Mm-hmm.
They really prioritized uh, getting our work done more than talking about relationships and how to navigate through them. Even though I imagine they knew it was an important part of life for teenagers. A third thought that came up I really appreciated is that while we're talking about this topic of friendship and dramas within friendships among teenagers, how you did highlight that teenagers today, while there are quite intense reactions to friendship issues and circumstances and things that go on,
Yeah.
I really did appreciate you recognizing that teenagers are actually the way God created them in this stage of life. There's actually a lot of good things. They really do value authenticity and doing, and justice. They're also quite empathic and compassionate for others, as much as they may behave in such a way that excludes others. They're also quite quick to want to include others and do what is helpful, even in the midst of friendship
Yeah.
dramas. So, yeah, those thoughts came to mind.
Yeah. And so I think, like, culturally, you and I, as second gen parents who have partially or a lot of our life grown up here, we can be more sensitive and empathetic
Mm-hmm.
and understanding to our teenagers and some of their
Mm-hmm.
friendships and drama, and even sensitive to the pain and hurt it may cause and some of the negative consequences that might produce in our own teens as parents, and
Mm-hmm.
being caring parents for them. That doesn't mean that our first gen parents, our immigrant parents, were not caring. It's just
Mm-hmm.
that it might not have been on their radar, but it is definitely an issue for teenagers today, and it does impact them and affect them in deep personal
Mm-hmm.
ways.
Yeah. And on that note, I just want to emphasize um, how why it might impact them. There might be a variety of reasons. One definitely being that God did make us for relationships. In
Yeah,
Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, it says, "It is not good for man to be alone." So uh, there is an understanding that we were made to be in relationship
yeah,
and have a sense of connection and a sense of belongingness in the midst of relationships and our friendships.
yeah. So,
Mhm.
so one thing I think that, like, you can't just go up to your teenager and be like, "How's your friendships?" You
Mhm.
know, what's your drama going on with your friends?
Mhm.
Um, but there are times when we might notice some changes in friendships. They're not
Mhm.
calling certain people.
Mhm.
Certain friends aren't coming over anymore.
Mhm.
Um, you might notice them not hanging out with certain people at church or at school anymore. And maybe that can be an opportunity to bring up this kind of issue with your teenager and say, "Hey, have you grown apart? Is something affecting your friendship? Is there something that's going on?
Mhm.
Something, is there any other ways you might think of that as parents we might be able to just gently bring this up?"
Mhm. Yeah, I appreciate how you're um, uh, recognizing it's not something that you just want to jump into and feel like you have to rescue them from something
Mm,
difficult, but be able to really enter in and think about what does it mean to walk alongside them rather than micromanaging or trying to rescue them again? Uh, how do you guide them? And how can this become an opportunity to help our teenagers grow in wisdom in such a way that doesn't avoid the hard uh, um, feelings and reactions and all the discomfort, but be able to engage it with them in such a way that will help them to um, work through their emotional reactions, because
Mm-hmm.
that's a really important part of the teenage stage.
Yeah.
And you and I can talk a little bit about what's going on in terms of that teenage developmental stage that makes friendship circumstances feel more intense,
Yeah.
uh, and where we might think, oh, that doesn't seem such a big issue, but to them, it feels like the world just crashed upon, their lives.
Like it causes a lot of hurt and pain because, like, for example, a lot of teenagers don't know how to do conflict resolution.
Right.
They lack the maturity. They struggle to regulate even their emotions during miscommunications and
Yeah.
fights and texting wars. We've seen
Right.
that in
Oh
youth group
gosh.
where
Yeah.
like three girls or three guys text one guy evil
Hmm.
messages, and we've had parents, complain when their child, their teenagers, a recipient of those texts, and they're in the process of learning how to do
Hmm.
conflict resolution.
Yeah.
Also, teens idealize friendships, and so when something goes wrong, it's hard for them to deal with it. They
Hmm.
think we're going to be best friends, best buddies, we're dudes, we're gal pals. I'm sorry, I'm just making it up, but we are friends forever, and we love each other. And
Hmm.
then Instagram post picture or a TikTok video comes and one person's not included, and then they're all of a sudden not best friends, and it's the end of the world.
Hmm.
And so, and as we can see, social media amplifies a lot of these conflicts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were talking about those, uh, with social media, the kind of comparisons you might make, especially if you don't, if you see friends having gone to some kind of an event without you, even though there may have been a very good reason why that had happened, or
Hmm.
you might see other friends that you're not a group that you're not a part of, and it really exacerbates this feeling of loneliness or not feeling a part of something
Hmm.
if, while a teenager is sitting at home. And so I think you're bringing up a really important point, how social media plays such a it can play such a big part in the already um, challenging stage of life that they're in, where they are trying to understand or make sense of this desire to belong and be in friendships,
Yeah.
and then lack some skills to manage conflict or manage some of the emotional reactions that are so intense
Yeah.
that can normally come up during this stage of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so on that note, just one more part to it. Uh, we know that a lot of folks and a lot of parents understand that during this adolescent developmental stage, there are lots of kind of growth that is happening, a lot of changes in their bodies
Yeah.
and their minds, and so much is starting to develop pretty quickly at
Yeah.
this time, and so that does have some impact in terms of how they will experience the relationship um, hardship for themselves.
Yeah.
Like, let's say, for example, as they are growing, there are so many different parts of their body and minds that are growing really quickly. But they're also growing at different speeds. For
Yeah.
example, sensory and motor tasks, along with like the experience of emotions and trying to process them, along with the kind of the sense of a reward and feeling good about a reward. That part of the mind and the brain is developing, sooner than the parts of the minds that try to process um, uh, the emotionally laden situations and have much more of the ability to control for it.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Mm-hmm.
cognitive control part of the mind is growing a little slower than the emotional part of the mind.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so if you imagine, then if that different kind of the differential growth that is going on when they're encountering a situation that, you know, is pretty important to them, as such as friendship,
Yeah.
then the circumstances that they face can bring up much more intense, emotionally laden kind of reactions and
Yeah.
responses,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the difficulty then to control for or make sense of and think about conflict resolution is a bit more difficult at that
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
So something as simple as your child says, I don't want to go to church today. I don't like the people. Or, I don't want to go to the football game on Friday because I'm not feeling it with my friends. Something like that can just be an indicator, could be an indicator of some kind of drama or conflict with their friends. Let's talk about then how do we guide our
Mhm.
children through this drama as parents? What should we say and what shouldn't we say? And I know I failed a lot of what I shouldn't say,
Mhm.
but I've said it often. Like
Mhm.
I've said to my, children, that's not a big deal.
Mhm.
You're being sensitive. You're being dumb. Um, you should just avoid them. Just cut them off.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I never liked them being your friend anyway. You know,
Mhm.
just be the bigger person. Those are things that probably not a sensitive adult parent should say. It's not what we should say. Um, what are your thoughts on some ways that parents can guide teenagers through the drama?
Mhm. Uh, I I liked what you said before in terms of, again, not just jumping in and saying, just what happened, but being able to say, "Oh, I noticed that, you didn't feel good about going to church, because of the friends that you don't wanna, associate with. Can you tell me more about that? What
Yeah,
happened? Were there things that happened?" And not so much about, and you don't want to force them to answering it, but you wanna invite them to answering it. So recognizing, your attendant, maybe your own heart as a parent, where you may feel really worried, and you want to rescue them. So you may want to really press in more and be more intrusive about the questions.
yeah,
So you want to guard against being intrusive with the questions, because our goal is to invite, walk alongside and guide them,
hmm
rather than fix it or make it go away or rescue them
yeah,
from a situation. I do remember again our one of our older son, one the older son, our older son, who had gone through that at church with some of his friends. and in no way I'm saying he's an innocent party, because I think he was part and parcel of some of the drama that took place among his friends, and his friends. I think some of them uh, uh, had posted uh, really unthoughtful uh, um, perspectives, or had made fun of him
On social
on
media.
social media,
Yeah.
right? And we happen to see it too on social media. And so it was an occasion where we uh, uh, asked him, how are you doing with that? How is that feeling for you? And acknowledging if he's having a hard time. And he said, yeah, he felt really angry and hurt by it, being able to acknowledge how hurtful and angering that could feel for him.
Yeah.
So I think the first step is to, number one, recognize your own heart as a parent and the desire to want to fix or rescue rather than to walk alongside and guide as Christ, who is the shepherd, and point our children, our teenagers, to Jesus, who is the good shepherd
Yeah.
indeed. And so we had validated his feelings and reactions, and were able to acknowledge, that sounds really, really hard. Oh, I'm sorry they said that to you.
Mm-hmm.
That that's uncalled for.
Yeah.
Um, uh, that kind of ridicule is hard for anybody.
Yeah.
And then maybe even when you have the opportunity, even say, I understand your pain, and also Jesus, who guides you, understands your pain too.
These are things that a
Mhm.
parent can say
Could say, yeah.
versus the things that
Mhm.
I mentioned not to say.
Right.
Things like, hey, let's bring this to the Lord together. What's
Hmm.
one step of wisdom we can take?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
you
And you want to do that part a little bit later in terms of guiding in such a way that helps them to solve a problem with it.
mm-hmm.
Because one of the things that you are hoping to help them develop is an understanding of, if God is for you, then who can be against you? And then what that application would mean is that he would be able to also move towards his friends, if if it is something that is doable, to
Mm-hmm.
be able to talk about it with his friends. And we want to encourage them to be able to move towards reconciling in some form too. And we understand it that not all situations reconciliation is possible, but in terms of some many situations, there could be ways towards it that can help our teenagers learn more about what does it mean to reconcile, to forgive, but also to confront,
Yeah. Yeah.
and in a way that could help
Yeah.
them work through it.
So, one last thing that we can talk about is this idea that you hinted at, as parents being guides versus micromanaging the situation, or being shepherds and
Mhm.
not saviors of the situation. Um, how can we, let's think about this question together, Monica, about how can parents help their teenagers build healthy and godly friendships? How can the gospel shape how we guide our teens?
Mhm.
That our role is to walk with them, to teach them, to help them to become the kind of friend that God calls them to,
Mhm.
because of Christ. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
And this drama, they have to learn to forgive and be compassionate
Mhm.
and maybe even reconcile.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I I think it's one thing important in terms of how to help a teenager build that healthy and godly friendship is it does involve parents recognizing the importance of this goal. Because I think as parents, sometimes we want to protect our teenagers.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. And what we may want to do is help them feel better and make sure the situation goes away rather than help guide them in order to help them to build a way through difficult kinds of situations that feel really dramatic to them. Right? And I keep thinking about our son, when he was going through that real kind of drama with his friends. I certainly felt upset about what they were doing and saying. It almost felt like they were ganging up on him.
Mm-hmm.
But when we started to walk with our son in the midst of it, and to guide him through and to learn about how to build godly and healthy friendships, he in knowing that he had support, he was able to talk about his part in that drama too.
Mm-hmm.
Like what might have how he may have participated in it, rather than he's just a victim of it. Mind you, I'm not saying that there aren't situations where a teenager is simply the victim of really mean other teens ganging up on them, but this was not that type of situation. And so we were able to talk about what were some of his parts in it, and why did they do that? What was their purpose? And how can he then, because of his faith, and they share faith together. This was a group that loved Jesus at that time, and how can then he engage them and talk about what was hurtful, how he hurt them, and what was hurtful to him, considering what they did. And so that was an important part of helping our son build that godly friendship and reconciling, and how the gospel, because of Jesus, would guide their hearts towards doing a better job with one another.
Yeah. I mean, definitely friendship is messy and drama is part of our normal living in this fractured world. But your teen's not alone. They have us as their parents, and we're not alone as parents. We have the Lord and the gospel to guide us, and we have a role to walk alongside our teenagers, pray for them, and point them to the gospel. And so, in our journey as Asian American parents, let's continue to do that and help our teenagers and love them. So we appreciate you all listening to this episode, and we look forward to our next episode. May we embrace the hope and joy of the gospel and believe that it's true, powerful, and transformative. Thanks for listening to Asian American Parenting. We hope that you have enjoyed this podcast. For more resources, visit the show notes. See you next time.